What if life had no grand design, no final reward, no deeper plan? Would you still live it fully? Albert Camus believed that the absurd is not our enemy, but our invitation to wake up. In a world that offers no answers, how do you find the courage to keep asking questions? Albert Camus did not set out to depress you. He did not write to paint the world in gray or to drain hope from human hearts. He wrote to tell the truth as he saw it, that the universe is silent, indifferent, and without inherent meaning, that we, as thinking and feeling beings, crave order, justice, clarity, but the world offers none of these guarantees. This tension between our desire for meaning and the world's refusal to provide it is what Camus called the absurd. The absurd is not a theory. It is a lived condition. You wake up, go to work, return home, repeat. You lose someone you love. You chase dreams that vanish. You pray for certainty but live with doubt. You want life to make sense, but it does not, and yet, you are still here, breathing, moving, choosing. Camus saw this contradiction not as a reason for despair, but as the most honest beginning of freedom. Born in French Algeria in 1913, Camus grew up in poverty, without his father, and later faced war, resistance, and illness. He was no stranger to pain or injustice. But instead of escaping into religion or nihilism, he faced the absurd directly. He refused both hope and hopelessness. He called this confrontation lucid thinking, the refusal to lie to oneself, even when the truth is hard, to see that life may have no higher meaning and still insist on living with dignity. This is the paradox of Camus. He wrote that the absurd man does not commit suicide, because to kill yourself would be to admit defeat in the face of the absurd. Instead, you rebel. You live without appeal to a higher power. You do not ask the universe for meaning. You bring meaning to it through your acts, your choices, your stance. To live in full awareness of the absurd and still say yes to life, that, for Camus, is the essence of revolt. This revolt is not loud. It is not violent. It is quiet, persistent, and deeply personal. It is saying, I know life does not explain itself, but I will still get up. I will still love. I will still think. I will still act. Camus believed this was the most honest form of freedom. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from illusion. And in that clarity, he found a strange kind of joy. Camus was not trying to destroy hope. He was trying to free it from fantasy. He believed that only when we stop expecting life to be fair or meaningful can we start living authentically. The absurd does not trap us. It invites us. It asks, if there is no higher purpose, what kind of purpose will you create? If nothing is promised, what will you still choose to give? If death is certain, what kind of life will you craft in the meantime? The absurd is not something to solve. It is something to endure with eyes open. Camus did not ask us to make peace with despair. He asked us to make art with it, to build a life not in spite of absurdity, but because of it, to live with the kind of courage that expects nothing but gives everything. If Camus' philosophy of the absurd is the foundation, then his novel The Stranger is the living embodiment of that idea. The story begins not with a grand insight, but with a disorienting line. Mother died today. Or maybe yesterday. I don't know. These words, spoken by Meursault, the novel's main character, unsettle us. How could someone speak of their mother's death with such detachment? But this is the brilliance of Camus. He does not give us a character who fits our expectations of grief or morality. He gives us someone radically honest about the absurd. Meursault is not cruel. He is not violent by nature. He is not a monster. He is simply indifferent to the social rituals that people mistake for meaning. He does not cry at his mother's funeral. He does not pretend to love his girlfriend. He does not lie when asked if he believes in God. And for this, for his refusal to conform, he is condemned. Not just by the courts, but by society. They do not hate him for what he did. They hate him for not pretending to be like them. Through Meursault, Camus asks us, what is worse, to commit a crime, or to refuse to play the game of appearances? What happens when you stop pretending? When you stop covering absurdity with illusion? Meursault's crime, if we are honest, is not murder. It is honesty. His crime is living without lies. And that is what makes him a stranger, not to us alone, but to the world itself. In The Stranger, the absurd is not just an idea, it is a verdict. Meursault is sentenced to death not for the killing alone, but for his failure to grieve, to pray, to confess. He is judged not for what he did, but for what he refused to feel. His trial becomes a theater of morality, and he becomes a scapegoat for a society terrified of anyone who will not play along. But here lies the turning point. Facing execution, Meursault does not collapse. He awakens. He accepts the absurd completely. He stops seeking comfort. He stops looking for reasons. He embraces the terror of the void and finds something deeper, freedom. He realizes that life has no meaning, and therefore, all meaning is ours to create. That death is inevitable, and so life must be lived without regret. This transformation is not religious. It is existential. It is not hope for an afterlife, but clarity in this one. In his final moments, Meursault welcomes the meaningless universe. He feels the night, the stars, the silence, and instead of despair, he feels peace, not because the world changed, but because he did. Camus called this the absurd victory. To stand before the void and remain standing. To say yes, not to fantasy, but to the raw truth of existence. To refuse to lie, even in the face of death. This, for Camus, is the height of human dignity. Meursault's story is not a lesson. It is a mirror. It forces us to ask, what illusions do I cling to? What roles do I perform? What truths am I afraid to name? And more importantly, am I ready to face life as it is, without needing it to be more than that? In The Stranger, Camus does not offer comfort. He offers clarity. He strips away everything unnecessary and asks us to stand with him in the bare desert of existence. No maps, no promises, just us, the absurd, and the chance to choose anyway. The world will always tempt you with easy answers. It will offer false promises, shallow comforts, and rituals that pretend to give life meaning. But Camus challenges you to go deeper, to ask, what if there is no cosmic plan? No reward waiting after pain? No redemption written in the stars? Will you still live, still create, still love? For Camus, the answer must be yes. Because the absence of meaning does not mean the absence of value. In fact, it is this very absence that gives your actions weight. If nothing is predetermined, then everything you do matters more. If there is no script, then you are not a character, you are the author. Every decision becomes an act of rebellion. Not rebellion against society alone, but rebellion against meaninglessness itself. This is why Camus loved art, loved beauty, loved the moments of joy that arise in the cracks of existence. Not because they fix the absurd, but because they shine despite it. A smile, a song, a friendship, a memory. These are not illusions if you do not demand they last forever. They are real, precisely because they are fleeting. Camus called this defiant joy, the joy that comes not from denial, but from full awareness. To live in this way is not to become cold. It is to become present. You stop asking life to be something else and begin to live it as it is. You taste your coffee more deeply. You feel time more vividly. You grieve more honestly. You love with the knowledge that nothing is promised. And in that love, in that presence, something sacred emerges, not from heaven, but from earth. Camus teaches us that we do not need to invent hope. We only need to refuse despair. We do not need to solve the absurd. We only need to live it with courage. We do not need meaning to fall from the sky. We can build it with our hands, shape it with our days, carve it out of the raw material of our lives. The Stranger ends with a man facing death, not with fear, but with fire. That fire is not in his circumstances. It is in his clarity. That is the invitation Camus offers you. To face the absurd, not with resignation, but with rebellion. Not to bow before the silence of the universe, but to speak your truth into it. This is not a philosophy for the comfortable. It is for the brave. It is for those who are tired of pretending, tired of chasing illusions, tired of waiting for permission to be alive. It is for those who want to live now, in full, without apology. Camus did not ask us to believe in something greater than life. He asked us to believe in life itself, not because it is perfect, but because it is real, and that reality, however absurd, is more powerful than any illusion. Thank you for exploring this journey into the heart of absurdism. Camus did not offer certainty. He offered freedom. The freedom to stop hiding behind meaning and to start creating your own. The freedom to feel joy, even when the world refuses to explain itself. The freedom to live with open eyes, open hands, and an open heart. If this message resonated with you, let it stay, let it unsettle, let it move you toward a life that is honest, present, and defiant in its beauty. You do not need answers to live well. You only need courage. You only need truth. If you would like to keep walking this path with us, where philosophy meets experience, and thought becomes transformation, we invite you to stay here at the Life Philosophy channel. Until next time, stay awake, stay brave, and above all, stay true to the life you are living right now.